So introduction to database development using SQL Server, using Community Development Association as case study. So, sorry. So, what is Community Development Association? Are you following? So, Community Development Association in Nigeria is basically an association of people living in an area where the these people, or let's say these persons, meet regularly to discuss how they can improve the living conditions of their area. Hmm? Their area. They pay membership dues. Hmm? Hmm? They pay membership dues. Hmm? They pay membership dues, which enable them to embark on projects which improve living conditions. Are you following? In their area. For me. Okay. So this is the background of what we are going to do. So community development association in Nigeria is basically an association of people living in an area. These persons regularly meet to discuss how they can improve living conditions of their area. They pay membership dues, which enable them to embark on projects which improve the living conditions in their area. Now, let's look at the entities that we can identify. To identify from problem statement. Are you following? So the entities we can identify are we can identify members, that's members. We can identify meeting, the old meeting. We can identify dues. Let's say monthly dues. Are you following? And then we can identify projects. Let's call it developmental projects. Okay? Developmental projects. So based on this, we are going to create a SQL Server database that will cater for all these four entities. So how to install SQL Server is a topic for another day. So now, but assuming you have installed SQL Server properly, there is a gateway that allows you to connect to it. It's called Management Studio. So, so this is it in my here now, SQL Server Management Studio. I click on it. And basically, I'm connected. There are different types of servers in SQL Server, but the one that we are interested in is called database engine. That's where we can create databases. Okay, so normally you can give your server should have a name. So let's call it localhost. Now you can connect to your server through different methods. You can use Windows authentication. You can use SQL Server authentication. So let's use SQL Server authentication. Well, SQL Server authentication will basically SQL Server authentication will basically ask you for a username and password. If it's correct, it will allow you in. If it's not correct, it will not allow you in. So I've typed it already. So I've asked SQL Server to remember this. So I click connect. Okay. You get it. So let this object explorer. From here, you can create new databases and other things. So how do I create a database? I'll just right click here and say new database. Okay. So now I'll give the database a name. So I've decided to give the database the name of CDADB. That's short form of Community Development Association Database. I can, if I like, I can decide to give a owner to the database. So I decide to give SA as the owner of my database. SA means system admin. Okay. So I click OK. Now, after creating the database, if I expand, you will see that CDADB is one of the databases. I can expand it, then you have tables. Okay, so I click on tables, I point to new, I go to table. So I'm creating my first table now. And the first table I'm going to create is member. So I'm going to have member ID. And let's say the data type is integer. You know what integers are? Whole numbers without decimal places. So a member should have a first name And this first name will be compulsory. So we uncheck this to signify that it's compulsory. Okay. Middle name also should not be more than 50 characters, but this one will not be compulsory, so we'll leave it unchecked. So last name.
Why can't you leave spacing between first and last?
Hmm?
Why can't you leave spacing between last and name?
Because it's a programming name. So if I want to leave name space, I have to put underscore there. It's a variable. God bless you. So now instead of putting gender, suppose we need the gender of the person too. Instead of putting gender, I put gender ID and I also say it's int. You will understand why I did that very soon. Hmm? And it's compulsory. Okay. Let's put email. Also compulsory. Let's put one phone number. Also compulsory. Now, there is what we call primary key in database, which uniquely identifies so this primary key uniquely identifies each row in the database. So how do you create the primary key? You right click on the column you want to create the primary key, and then you say set primary key. So member ID is now a primary key code. Now, I want member ID, you know it's an integer column. I want SQL Server to automatically insert numbers there. Start with 1, go to 2, go to 3 like that without we doing it. So it's called identity. So how do we do that? You just go to, while still selecting the column there at the top, you go down under the button here, you change its identity, you expand this identity specification, then you change its identity from no to yes. Are you getting it? Now, at this point, you can save the table for the first time. You right click on the surface of the design and say save table. So it's members. Okay? You get that? Good. Now I'm going to create another table for gender. So gender, there will be a table called genders. So if there are, this table will be a lookup table. So a lookup table serves as, it serves other table. You know, you've seen drop downs where you want to select gender, people will pick it. So normally they go to other tables to pick those values. So they are called lookup tables. So even though we didn't identify gender as one of our entity before, so now we are now going to put it in gender. Okay. So new table, gender ID, which is it. And we are going to have gender name, which is nbaka 50. Make gender ID primary key. Gender name will be compulsory. And then we'll go back to gender ID. We'll make it identity column. I've explained what that is to you.
Gender ID 794.
No, it starts from 1, 2, 3, 4. This identity increment. Primary key means it's uniquely identified the table. And I've not created the foreign key yet, but I will still create it later. So now I save this table as genders. Okay. Now it's now time for me to create the foreign key. Now, where do I create the foreign key? Is it on gender table, where gender ID is primary key, or on members table where gender ID is supposed to be a foreign key? Are you following? So it's where it's supposed to be a foreign key. It's not yet a foreign key because I've not created it yet. So it's time to create the foreign key. It's actually a marriage between two tables based on a common column that have the same data type. And the requirement is that for the two columns from the different tables to participate in the marriage or relationship, which we call a foreign key technically, there are requirements that must be met. The first requirement is that one of the columns must be a primary key or unique key, and that is satisfied by the gender ID column in gender table. And then the second requirement is that the two participating columns must have the same data type. So that means you cannot join NVACA 70 to NVACA 90. They are not the same data type. But you can join NVACA 90 to NVACA 90. Do you get it now? So to create relationship is as simple as by clicking here. Then you click on relationships. Then you click on add. So after you have clicked on add, you have this guy here called table and column specification. Just click the ellipsis by the right of it. So after you have clicked the ellipsis by the right of it, SQL Server is already suggesting a name for you. But where you should be primarily concerned with is the primary key table, which should be genders. The primary key column, gender ID. Foreign key table already selected for you. You cannot change that, members. Foreign key column will also be gender ID. Then you click OK. There are some other properties that will not concern ourselves with right now. So click close. Then you have to come back to Table Designer and click Save All button. So that's the minimum requirement to create relationship in SQL Server Management Studio. So SQL Management Studio will ask you this question. The following tables will be saved to your database. Do you want to continue? Click yes. Are you following? Okay. So we are done with this table. Now let's go to meeting table. So we are going to have meeting ID. Let's make the data type big int. It's a kind of integer, but can store larger range than normal integer. So set primary key. Meeting location. Let's make that one NVACA 200. Okay. Meeting date. There's a data type called date time. Now note that all these things are compulsory. So it is. Are you following? Is this one already identity? Then it's time for, note that we should also have, meetings should have agendas. So we are going to have another, let me duplicate this. So meetings do have agendas. Let's call it meeting agendas. You know what agendas are, isn't it? Yeah. Thank you, meeting agenda. So We are going to create a new table for meeting agenda. So we are going to have meeting agenda ID. Let's make that one to vacant to be primary key. And it will also be identity. Are you following? Then this meeting agenda, we have a foreign key with the meeting ID. Do you get that? Vacant. So meeting ID is vacant. So then you are going to have meeting agenda name. Let's make that one NVACA 150. Now all these guys here, they'll be compulsory, okay? So meeting agenda. Is this guy primary key? Yes, it is. Now let's create relationship like we did the other time. We right click relationships, click add table and column spec, primary key, meeting, meeting ID, meeting ID. Now you want a list of members that attended meeting. So we are going to have another table called another entity called meeting attendee. You get it? So new table. You are going to have attendee ID. Digit. Primary key. Is identity. You want to know the member who attended the meeting. You get it? That one too should be begins, if I'm right. Okay, member ID is it. Are you following? Before member ID, I want to insert a column between attendee ID and meeting ID. So let's suppose I forgot. So what I'll just do is I'll click on member ID. I'll say insert column and pronto I have so meeting ID, that type is vacant, okay? So we save this table as meeting attendees. Are you getting it? We are going to have two foreign keys, but before we do the foreign keys, let's check that we have identity specification enabled. Yes. So let's do the two foreign keys. The first foreign key will be for meeting ID. Right click relationships, you add table and column spec. Meetings, meeting ID. Meeting ID. Are you getting it? Okay. Then we click add again. Because this second relationship of foreign key, ellipsis, primary key table, members, primary key column, member ID, foreign key column, member ID. Then you click OK. You click close. Are you following? Then you save your meeting attendees table. So the last entity we are going to implement is monthly contributions. Are you following? That has to be okay. But instead of calling it monthly contributions, let's just call it contributions. Let's call it member contributions. Okay. So new is going to be the final table for this afternoon lesson. So in the next lesson, we will now create a front end for it. We use Raxin to quickly craft the front end for this. Okay. So now we are going to have contribution ID. That type big int. And we are going to make it primary key. Then you are going to have contribution day. That will be date time. Then you want to know which member did what contribution. So we need the member ID. Okay. So we need to know the date of the contribution, the member that did what contribution. We need to know the purpose of the contribution. So let's use a data type called nvacamax for that. And we need to know the amount of the contribution. Let's just call it amount contributed. Okay, amount. We use decimal 18,2. 18,2 is for the 2,2 is for the Kobo part. Thank you. So now we are going to save this table as member contributions. Okay. This identity. So we need to do a relationship. Okay. Members. Member ID. Member ID. Click save all again. Following tables will be saved to your database. Do you want to continue? Yes.